I want to look at inward now, the design of humanity itself. You know, Psalms tells us that God knit us together in our inmost parts, that he knew us from before we were created, that we are specifically and wonderfully made in the very fabric of what it means to be human. That, of course, is DNA. Now, DNA has been made popular as the magic elixir that solves crimes in about an hour on television. So it's very powerful, but the truth about DNA is even more staggering about what it actually is. If the Bible were right about that God created us specifically on purpose and designed us, what would we expect to see? We'd expect to see specific ordered information that would not have happened by other, or is unlikely to have happened by other means. Francis Collins was one of the directors of the Human Genome Project, the mapping of the human DNA. He was one of the directors of that project. And recently, of course, not recently in terms of last week, but a few years back, they finished the project. They finally sequenced human DNA. In his book, The Language of God, he says this newly revealed text was 3 billion letters long. That's the DNA strand, one of which is 3 billion letters long. You have trillions of them in your body. The newly revealed text was 3 billion letters long and written in a strange and cryptographic 4-letter code. Such is the amazing complexity of the information carried within each cell of the human body that a living reading of that code at a rate of 3 letters per second would take 31 years, even if reading continued day and night. Printing these letters out in regular font size on normal bond paper and binding them all together would result in a tower the size of the Washington Monument. For the first time on that summer morning when they finished the project, this amazing script, carrying within it all the instructions for building a human being, was available to the world. That's amazing. That's staggering. That's absolutely staggering. Now, there's been some theories about how DNA arose. There's the random chance theory, which no one actually believes anymore. Not even, secular scientists don't actually say, no, it came about by random chance. There's the chemical natural selection theory, the idea that sort of through a naturalistic process of survival of the fittest, as it were, as it applies to chemicals, that happened. Of course, that's circular, because in order to get that kind of a process, you'd have to have a self-replicating system already in place to get to a self-replicating system. Do you see how that's circular? In order to get to A, you need to have A already existing. So that doesn't work. And then the physical necessity or chemical affinities of self-ordering, the idea that we see that all the time in nature. We see, sodium and chlorine, coming together because they form natural bonds. And therefore, why can't the amino acids and the chemicals that form DNA just naturally come together because they have affinities to each other? Well, first, it's empirically not true. They don't have affinities to each other. And second, even if they did, Michael Polanyi said this. He asked the question, what would happen if we could explain the sequence in DNA and protein as a result of self-organizational properties? Wouldn't we end up with something like a crystal of salt where there's merely a repetitive sequence? In other words, salt is NaCl, sodium and chlorine. And you take those two things and you say NaCl, 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 NaCl over and over again. They have affinities. They form natural orders. It looks even beautiful if you see the structure of it, but it's not ordered in terms of an irregular order. It's actually specifically regularly ordered, and it provides nothing of information. It just provides a sequence. Water is the same thing. Hydrogen, oxygen together. HH or HOH, HOH. They form a lattice structure, but that's all they are over and over again. With DNA, you don't get that. With DNA, you get highly irregular, 3 billion letters long, different codes that show no just automatic pattern. They had to have been arranged purposefully to get what we have. This is what caused Francis Crick, himself an atheist by the way, to say, an honest man armed with all the knowledge available to us now could only state that in some sense, the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. So many other conditions which would have had to have been satisfied to get it going. So the point is this: when we look outwardly to the heavens and we see the fine-tuning and we see the origin of the universe, and specifically the fine-tuning and choices being made so that life could exist, we see purpose. When you look inwardly, so from outward to inward, huge to infinitesimal, you see purpose.